You are listening to the Gentleman Scofflaw podcast. Listener beware.
Rise and shine, the liquor store is open. I ain't got time for moping. I best be on my way. Well, I still got time to save my reputation. Time to go day drinking in this dirty little town.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Gentleman Scofflaw podcast, the podcast for the rebel and the Renaissance man. I'm your host, Jordan Crowder. Co-hosting with me today is a good old friend. His name is Justin Robinson. Do you go by J-Rob or Justin Robinson? What do you prefer, Justin?
I don't have a preference, but most people in the film world probably go by J-Rob.
By J-Rob.
Probably,
yeah, that's a good handle, a good filmmaker handle, a good podcast handle. I think you should stick with it. For our listeners that don't know you, just give us a little quick kind of intro of who you are and what you do.
Oh man, that's a loaded question. Still trying to figure that answer out. I think if I was to whittle it down, my dream and goal in whatever iteration, mostly the medium of movies, TV shows, but I want to tell stories. So mostly that's been through writing and directing, short films. You know, I've kind of done all sorts of jobs on the crew side of things, but my heart and my dream is to tell the stories. And so if that's novels, movies, TV shows, you name it, I'm kind of into it, you know, even person to person. I think just as a conversationalist, I think the art of storytelling is something that's really important to me, and in a weird, ironic way, because I didn't grow up around kind of a creative life, and that's the life I want now. Yeah,
that's awesome, man. Yeah, we met many moons ago. Which is kind of a weird way of how we met, but it's kind of the modern way of, connecting with people. But it's funny because, so I remember being on Twitter late at night. I had just moved to LA, and for some reason we were following each other. And I don't remember how that happened. Maybe you have more insight into that, but you posted one of your short films that scared the crap out of me, and I was on at like 11 at night about to go to bed, and I just remember responding, never post something like that this close to bedtime. I was on Twitter.
I think that was my stalking of you, because back in the kind of infant days of YouTube, you know, I didn't have film school and really a lot of avenues to I didn't have a film community. I didn't have a lot of kind of options to learn. And so YouTube, the internet, was still pretty new. It was a few years post dial-up that I grew up with in Florida, which was pretty much, unusable. But when YouTube came out, there was a lot of creators and filmmakers and people who did sketches and people who did, all sorts of stuff. So I was on there all the time, and it was kind of the glory days in a weird old man screaming at the sky way. In regards to YouTube, it was just the wild, wild west. So there was a lot of kind of these pillars of the community where if they did quality work or they had a specific type of bizarre humor, I was just so into it because I was really isolated. I had just moved to a state that I hated. My brother, who I was very close with, just passed away of cancer. I was just in a really kind of like isolated environment. And so YouTube, with, kind of having a career character arc of wanting to be creative and what is this film industry like, and YouTube was kind of a gateway to go, these are what a lot of these people are making. And you were someone of that bunch where it was like this obscure kind of character sketches, if you will, like unfinished little bits of a guy doing a weird voice. And I was like, oh, this is funky and weird, and that's kind of fun. And I remember like something you did in a diner, which at that time was like, you got a real restaurant to shoot your thing, like that's real production value. You had some access to a cool diner, because a diner is like peak cinema. So I remember there was some diner stuff, and then there was just some silly character stuff of you just willingly being into it and going for it, and like also seemingly reserved at the same time. And so there was something about you that just hit this little sparkle, kind of just locked in the back of my mind. And I was like, oh, I would love to do something with him. And so there was Film Riot, which in a roundabout way I work for now. They were back in the YouTube glory days, and you had like Julian Smith, who did bizarre sketches where it's like a lot of screaming and absurd comedy, Freddie Wong.
Oh, I remember
Action
him.
shorts, Brett Driver, Corridor Digital. I'm trying to think, like, it was just a kind of a lot of people that did their little niche kind of well. And somehow through the algorithm, I found you. I was kind of like a talent scout that never was. I was just always kind of perusing for my people, and you seemed weird enough to welcome me with open arms one day. So I'm sure I followed you on all social media platforms at the time, which was probably just Twitter or Facebook or something. And I'm sure possibly I was sending you my stuff to read maybe. But I think that Twitter interaction was probably our first little spark of the relationship.
Yeah, I remember at that point, like watching your other backlog of shorts, and was really into what you were doing, which was so cool to see somebody like making quality short films at the time. Because like you said, the early days of YouTube was a lot of just odd stuff, like not necessarily well-made stuff. A lot of the stuff that you're talking about that I posted on YouTube was stuff they were like exercises I did in film school. And
definitely
YouTube came out while I was in my first year in school, and I was like, well, I guess I could put this stuff up. And so it started out kind of like a lot of, more like amateur stuff, where it's like now everything is so pro, but at the time you had some pro shorts at the time, and you were a great storyteller. And that's, how I, fell in love with your work and what you were doing. But yeah, it was, like you said, the Wild West. There was, you could actually post something and people would see it too, which is weird because now there's more eyeballs, but not as many people see stuff because it goes by so quickly. Like it's a totally different animal now.
Yeah, it was something where like I'd have to go back and look at who I subscribed to, but I remember there was like, maybe a dozen really solid film, actor, sketch related people where I just kind of was really faithful to their stuff. So anytime they ever sent something out, getting us a new video notification was actually like a really cool, exciting thing. And so some of those like unfinished character bits where it was just like, almost like a handy cam on you. There wasn't much like production quality necessarily outside of that diner thing where I was like, oh, he's actually like, there's effort into this. But it was one of those like little silly voices that you did, like the Never Road thing, where I was like, oh, okay, yeah, like you seemed malleable, you seemed game, and I think that's a very like gets me very excited to see someone game and willing to be just silly, because silliness is kind of a lost art, and a lot of people are too cool for school, and you seemed pretty silly, and I was like, okay. In the back of my mind, maybe one day, because I really want to pursue this. And he's someone that seems like they would also want to pursue this as well. And just from, a long distance digital relationship, just kind of gleaning, you seemed like good people too. So it was like, you were kind of always in the back of my mind, like if I get to make something. And then of course, down the line when I wrote the short Popeye, I was like, man, I think he would be awesome. And here we are all these years later.
But yeah, I know. So the Popeye, it's funny because I've had Isaiah and Joe on. They were the other actors in the short film that you wrote and directed that we all acted in. But I feel like I was thinking about this the other day because I actually found like an Instagram post that was me setting my shot up for the read for Popeye. And I think just like everything I do, I think I turned it in at the last possible minute. I had just moved apartments from my other apartment in LA to another apartment in LA and had nothing set up, and all my gear was in boxes and stuff. And I was like setting up my camera and back in the DSLR days, and I clamped my headshot to a mic stand to grab focus, and then I moved it out of the way and and recorded the sides.
That's awesome. No, I remember that very vividly because preceding that was 2014. I had shot a short in the summer called Grape Soda with Isaiah and actor friends Cranston Johnson, Rachel Hendricks, and then my lead was Mark Ashworth, this beloved British lad who lives in Atlanta. And I had seen him in a short film in like 2009, 2008, and I was like, oh my God, this guy, he's on my list. He's on my hit list, you know, it was love at first YouTube, you know. I see the people like you and I'm just like, oh, that one person, my mind, my heart, my soul just singles you out. And so Mark was someone that I became friends with down the line and worked with, not on something of mine, but then we connected and we were going to shoot this short film called Grape Soda. And he got really busy with like some pretty substantial productions, and his career was kind of hitting a pretty good stride with some legit like movies, real deal movies where it would be silly to do mine. And so he almost couldn't do it and we had to reschedule. And then he was like feeling, you know, like he had to take those, but also disappointed he couldn't do this. And I was like, I'm not doing it without you. Sorry. He was, I'll give you some recommendations of other people's. And I was like, you can shove it, Mark. So I was really patient and said no to like that. I said no to probably more things that summer than I did to anything for Grape Soda to happen. And so then a few months later, when I wanted to shoot Popeye the Pizza Man, you were on my radar and I couldn't get a tape from you. I was like, hey man, I was just feeling out, just following up. And I had a few people audition. There was one guy who was pretty solid, but my soul was already made up. My mind rather, maybe my soul was too. But, so I just kind of kept pushing and pushing and pushing because I just kind of needed proof, like, that you were real, that you weren't going to like ghost me, but also just hearing the words, you know, because sometimes you never know. It's like, especially with people on the internet. But yeah, when you finally sent it, I mean, my mind, my soul, like I said, was already made up. When you finally sent me that thing, I was like, okay, let's do this thing. You know, I had the puffer vest picked out. And so it was just this really awesome thing that came together. It was a crazy year because I shot 3 shorts that year in a matter of months. And so I was really, Popeye was just kind of a bizarre little thing to try and throw at the wall based on so many awkward interactions and people I knew growing up into this weird kind of scenario of pizza and mustaches and saturated colors and weird things. But yeah, I was then very grateful that you came out to join us, and we shot for 2.5 days, and I don't think I've laughed more. I mean, the content is absurd, so that's probably why it lends itself to be more, for the lack of a better word, funny. Yeah. But like bloopers and kind of the tone of it, it was a really enjoyable like thing to watch. Apart from like what we were actually shooting, just watching it beside the camera was a really kind of pleasurable experience, because usually I'm kind of into more dark or heavy or fatal type scenarios, you know, if you will. And so it was a more lighthearted, although it does deal with a lot of heavy things and themes. Yeah. But it was in a like a more endearingly quirky way.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a lot of fun, man. I like you just mentioned the puffer vest, and it's funny because I feel like my Popeye look is now like a current look again. Or at the time it was really out there. It like felt like almost like a period piece, and now like seeing everybody walking around with mustaches these days, and you know wearing vintage clothes, and
you can't keep a good man down, man. A mustache is those things are gonna always come back. But no, it was like seeing you in wardrobe with camo pants and a tan and white and red puffer vest and like a beanie that my family had since the 90s. Because when I look at that guy, I'm like, that guy knows. He just knows what's up. He stays in his own lane, you know, and there's something about him I want to be friends with. So that was a cool experience. I mean, when you see somebody in the wardrobe, it gets pretty real. But yeah, that's a wild wardrobe choice.
Yeah, it was fun, all that stuff. Like, so one of the things that I remembered was like you had created such a world with everyone's wardrobe and the set design and all the art direction. You did all of that, which is such a lot of work to also direct and write and do that and do the art direction. But it just was so crazy, like stepping on the set in that little house that you converted with all these artifacts that were part of the movie. It was like, oh, this is like a real world we're in.
No, it was a labor of love. I mean, in Greenville, where we shot at Greenville, South Carolina, there's a thrift store like every couple of miles. So for probably like 8 months, you know, just slowly accumulating things that speak to you. Obviously, there's certain like hero props you got to find and wardrobe pieces, but there was just like little knickknacks and then stuff. My family, they're not hoarders, but they just like never really got rid of stuff. So there's a lot of kind of saturated things from the 90s and little pops of color here and picture frames there. But my friend's mom let us shoot at her house, and she's kind of an eccentric, quiet lady who had a couple sons that lived there, but she had like a lot of dolls, and she just kind of gave me free reign to kind of convert, you know, like 3 rooms of the house. And I remember, you know, all the furniture, all of the stuff that we moved in. And then when I remember wrapping, it was a kind of a unexpected experience where all the stuff had been set up for a week. We shot for 2.5 days or whatever. And then I was, you know, by myself wrapping all this stuff out. And I remember just pulling the picture frames off the walls of you guys and like weird little knickknacks and pizza things and like putting them in boxes as if I was moving away or, you know, kind of packing them up for good, to where I just had this kind of involuntary emotional kind of reaction where I just wept, just kind of quietly, like just taking stuff off the wall, just like tears streaming as if nothing's going on with my body. I'm still doing the work. But I remember just having this really strong reaction to saying goodbye to these characters that I wasn't surprised by, but I didn't expect, because I can like cry at a commercial, but it was just this really kind of enriching experience, because I think because of how quirky and awkward those guys were and how quirky and awkward my life is and the surroundings of my life, especially my childhood, where like parts of it you have to survive, and then the rest of it you have to kind of digest and kind of sponge up naturally. And I think just seeing you guys come to life, and for me as a person, I kind of am longing for that moment of when I'm with someone or becoming friends with someone or on set with someone where they feel safe enough. You've earned a seat at the table with them, where they share that one big crucial moment in their life where like Isaiah on the treehouse, where he's talking about kind of a watershed moment for him, a really dark, traumatic, kind of inciting incident for him that sheds a lot of light on like how he carries himself, who he is. And so for me, it was like, I'm kind of aiming for that as a person. And I think seeing your character kind of be that person that allows people like Isaiah to speak is what I want to be, and also what I appreciate in others. And so, and just kind of this, you know, this moment of kind of being flooded by those emotions, I remember it really sticking with me of how beautiful it was, to where I was like, wow, I really actually don't want to say goodbye to these characters, as cliche as that sounds. So that was actually a really, really kind of cool moment, to where it was just, I remember just being in this house quietly packing up, and my friend's mom is just, you know, doing her thing, and I'm just a dude in college just weeping, putting down like pictures of guys and mustaches and, you know, red pieces of pizza off the wall, like the quirkiest, the loudest colors of things, knickknacks, and I'm just like bawling my eyes out. So that actually became something cool that stayed with me, to where I was like, I think maybe there's more to that story. Like maybe I'll write a feature about it one day. But either way, it was just really beautiful, because it was a hard goodbye means it was a good time, and it was a good time. So that was a cool moment, to where it was just me by myself, you know, and I had some help moving in initially from a couple of dudes who were willing to give me a hand. But I remember packing up by myself and just going, wow, I'm just really appreciative that everybody came and did something so strange and weird, because that's a weird script. I mean, most of my notes from even people I know were like, don't make this, it's weird. Like the kind of tones are all over the place, and at one point it had a bunch of narration, and there was kind of a lot of red lights to it. But I'm fairly stubborn and naive, and also confident in those decisions. But yeah, it was a weird one, but a fun one, and I'm grateful we all had that time together.
Yeah. I mean, the stubbornness and the, you know, going against the grain. Like, that's the one thing with you, is that you've proven already in your work that you know how to tell a good story. And so when you break the rules, it's for a reason, as opposed to just doing it to be weird. Like, you don't just do things to be weird.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it's very intentional.
Yeah.
And so that's why it worked, because it was weird, but it felt real too.
It comes naturally. Yeah. I don't have enough energy, especially at this point, to do anything extra weird. But I mean, I remember one mistake that stuck with me was throwing 6 pages of dialogue on you on day one. You know, I know.
Hey, I'm glad we got it out of the way.
Yeah. But no, I can't remember who it was. I think it was Unbreakable, Angelina Jolie's like World War II movie of POWs or something. And
yeah.
I could be misquoting, but there was she shot this movie, and I think it was the cinematographer Roger Deakins. They shot this like really intense scene on the water on day one, and they were kind of talking about like some other director friend of theirs was like, you got to start out with like inserts, you know, like take it easy. And she definitely kind of went the other way, but that stuck with me of like, yeah, it's probably, I think for scheduling reasons we had to do it, but I remember just throwing you into the fire and making you drink like cold coffee and just kind of like not testing you or messing with you, but just kind of letting you know like it's gonna get like we're gonna get in the mud a little bit and we're gonna get cleaned up afterwards, but I need to know that you're, you know, willing to step in the puddle with me, and you were. But yeah, definitely six pages of monologue was a lot, so that was on me. That was a green error on my part, but we did learn a lot that day. I mean, it's a tough scene no matter if you shoot it on the last day or the first day, but kind of the first, and we shot it in sequence too, but that was some green mistakes that, you know, take it or leave it, that was on me. But you went with it, you powered through. It was a lot, you know, it was a lot. But once we finally got to that kind of emotional threshold of where you're like, hey man, just take a second, you know, it was beautiful.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. It was the most that I've ever done acting, because you made it, you know, you stretched me, and I trusted that you were going to do, you know, not make me look like an ass, and and just kind of, once you were kind of were leading it in that direction, I was like, okay, I'm just along for the ride at this point, and we'll see where it goes.
I mean, if you agree to, I think it was like a 23-page script, so it's kind of an odd length.
Yeah. How long did it end up being in the end? Was it like? It
was like 27 minutes. So that, again, kind of an obscure length that most, you know, film festival programmers would tell you no, and anybody with a brain would probably say don't do that. But I still knowingly did, because I had just made a short, The Grape Soda, that was like 17 minutes, and I had made one that was like 11. I had made one that was like 10. I had kind of scratched all these itches and pop, which is part of the reason why I think it wanted to be longer at certain points. And again, at one point I had like narration, and you had a relationship with your car where it was like, it was always struggling and breaking down, but you would always promise to give it a bath. So there would be like, end of the day, you'd always be at like a car wash spraying it down. Yeah. That was kind of like your treat to your dog, if you will. So there was a lot of stuff that kind of whittled down to what it was. But yeah, an odd length, an odd page length, and an odd, you know, length of the movie. But still, there's a lot of beautiful moments where I was thinking about the cream soda joke that Isaiah improv'd, and you guys did that. Whenever I see him, that comes to mind, because I got to say like a month ago, and the cream soda joke, which to say the scene is he comes to see you after a hard day, and you offer him a cream soda, which was improv, and then Isaiah improvs back, sure man, I ain't driving, and live in the moment busted me. I'm not afraid to bust a take, but that one got me. Sure, man, I ain't driving. So
that was funny. I think remember wasn't there a blooper of that I saw in one of the behind the scenes where we're just couldn't take it. Yes. On that note, I'm just going to take a quick break, and we'll be back to talk about some more stuff in the Justin Robinson world. Hello, gentlemen scofflaws. Thanks so much for being a loyal listener of the show. Now, if you're a fan of the show and you want to take your support to the next level, why not support the show on Patreon? We offer all sorts of extras on there, like outtakes and behind-the-scenes content. Better yet, we have options that start as little as $1 a month. If you're interested in helping support the show, please check out patreon.com/gentscofflaw or click the support link on the website. Again, that's patreon.com/gentscofflaw. Your feedback and support is really what keeps us going and means a lot to us, so sincerely, thank you again. All right. So Justin, we talked a lot about Popeye and some film stuff, but how does somebody like you get into filmmaking? Because you're an interesting guy. You kind of swim upstream with your background and your where you grew up and your upbringing or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, so born in the 90s. Dad was a Baptist pastor. We were homeschooled, very sheltered, conservative, kind of checked all those boxes of if you saw us, it's a safe guess to say they were homeschooled. And our resources in regard to literature, movies, music was almost completely non-existent, like almost anti. So anything under the guise of my mom had to be rated G. And even like G-rated movies was pushing it for my mom. And so that left us with like a couple of VHS tapes of the Berenstain Bears, one of the BBC Chronicles of Narnia movies, The Silver Chair, which is a wild ride. If you ever see it.
Just the one, not the whole
just
series.
the one. I have no idea why or how, because my mom was very like anti-witchcraft and
God.
and even though that has its Christian roots, that it's a wild, like people turning into snakes and lizards and really bad like 80s fun wardrobe where it's like just dressed people wearing like a full human adult owl costume and then just being like, ooh, ooh,
Like they bought it at the spirit store.
yeah. So like that was a movie you always watched when you got sick. You had your saltine crackers and Gatorade and Lord of the Rings, just tripping balls on this movie because it's a wild ride. And I was watching that stuff stone cold sober, but it was like LSD, at least what I imagined LSD to be as a child. So
Well, you got to give the Robitussin some of the credit.
yeah, maybe it was. It was all that Pepto-Bismol or the Lord's Prayer. I don't know. So yeah, like didn't grow up with music, didn't grow up with movies, didn't grow up with books. And we got a VHS camera in the late 90s, and it was mainly like filming events, church events, singing in the musical or our basketball games. We're a big basketball family. And so through being able to watch it back later, it was really invigorating for me because as a young kid, as someone who wanted to play basketball and took sports very seriously, I was watching like film. I was studying my mistakes, without anyone telling me. And also just the luxury of kind of like reliving a moment or seeing that shot go in. It was kind of this kind of inciting incident that it didn't really take hold until later. And then the internet came out early 2000s and we had dial up, and then there was a friend of one of my older brothers who did some video work for like a church camp, and I remember he edited this like montage of their activities, and there was kids doing stuff in slow motion, and I was like, whoa, you could slow it down? Because I was editing VHS tape to VHS tape. So the best I could do is like if we had a fake punch, I could just repeat the action a couple times. Yeah. I didn't even know how to like integrate music or sound effects at that point. And again, it was kind of a watershed, eye-opening moment of, whoa, that's something special about that. How'd you do it slow like that? And so he showed me a couple of editing things, and then I used the illegal app or software LimeWire to download music, like Space Jam soundtrack and the Sandlot stuff. And so I was just integrating those and pumping those into my videos once I got like a digital handy cam. So outside of basketball, my hobby with my brother and a couple of pals was shooting like random sketches without even knowing they were sketches, unhinged, no script. I had no idea how to format a story, didn't know what structure was, didn't even really know a director was a job. Just was, it kept us out of doing, we weren't doing drugs or having sex with girls. So it was like all this pent up insane energy going into like doing, a cleaner version of Jackass on camera. Yeah. So then I kept playing basketball. That was going to be my pursuit. And then my brother, who was 3 years older than me, who was my best friend, closer to him than anyone, and he got cancer and died right before my senior year of high school. So the dream of basketball, the goal of college basketball, or what I had planned after that was to go be like a Navy SEAL or Special Forces kind of soldier that I never saw myself living a long life. So I thought, I think I would do fairly well in combat, knowing I would probably die. But I felt like that was an honorable thing. I played with G.I. Joes growing up, all the the romantic G.I. Joe propaganda, but I just thought my mindset, my makeup fit as someone who could go and do that task. So then when he died, basketball kind of stopped and went away and died with him. And so then just innately, it was like a kind of a whole fork in the road turning this way now, and filmmaking and writing and movies, which again, I had no connections to, no knowledge of, not a single idea of how to do that, what a script even looked like. So then I saved up money from mowing lawns and bought a computer and bought a new camera and was reading scripts for free on the internet and watching sketches and people like you on the internet, on YouTube, and just trying to practice my craft. So then I went to college and just started making sketches with my friends, and again, writing on like Microsoft Word at the time and making thing after thing and kind of scratching that itch. And then kind of looking at my life, like reading and writing was something we kind of, it was not something customary for me. And then going like, it's kind of interesting for someone who's not diagnosed, but I have a lot of like dyslexic issues. So reading and then going like, whoa, what a kind of about face in regards to character, where writing, that was something that, especially in the 90s, there was so many cool creative things that were almost like anti-masculine in a lot of ways to the societal norms. Like dudes don't journal, right? That's like for girls, like all those kind of things that you would kind of hear on the outskirts. But then also like writing is one of the coolest things anybody could do. And everybody has respect for books, or even in that Christian world, you're like, well, someone wrote the Bible, right? Like that's writing, right? Were the guys who wrote the Bible gay too? Like, what is this whole like this facade? Like, if you write, you're gay. It's like, it was kind of like those things where it was like, these weird theater. That was a very like anti-masculine, and I was kind of an alpha kid, so it was just like I didn't have access to those things, and then finding myself going like, how do I write? How do I act? How do I direct? And because I played basketball so much, I was a point guard, which is kind of the quarterback. It kind of set me up to learn how to set other people up for success, to know where you like to catch the ball, to know where you need to catch the ball, to know, I'm actually going to lead you with this pass. You're not going to want to go over there, but where I throw it, you're going to go get it. And you're going to realize after you shoot it, I set you up in a better spot than you were anticipating. So kind of like, the idiosyncrasies of working with people, the confrontation of basketball, the ownership of, hey, that's my mistake, I'll be better, the coachability, the being coached, the leading, the following, all those kind of tools and attributes really like translated to filmmaking for me. So, because as a point guard, you need to be very observant. You need to have a lot of attention to detail. You need to know everybody's strengths. You need to take ownership and accountability when you mess up, and that's going to happen. So then it was just college of just slamming my head against the wall and trying to write stuff like Popeye the Pizza Man or Grape Soda. Just, I would work, do a job as much as I can. And anytime I had off days, I was trying to make the thing that I wrote 6 months ago. And then I would go do a job or go work on a movie, and then I would have 2 weeks off and I would go make the thing. So it was just this weird avenue that I had no experience in. And so I've slowly been trying to continually learn and glean and teach myself. So I started working on it as a camera assistant, as a PA, and as a grip, and sometimes as an actor. Sometimes I did stunts. So I kind of was on set in different avenues to where I could kind of glean of what the machine, of what a set looks like in the hierarchy, and what not to do. Because a lot of my life is kind of what not to do, rather than like, here's how you do it. It's more like, oh, that's definitely not how I would do it. And I don't think that's how. So through trial and error, it kind of led me to go, this is how I'd like to run my set. This is how I would like to direct actors. This is how I would like to, the environment of a set, which is really important. The atmosphere, the familial relationship, the willingness that everybody's kind of game, right? Like we're all here to be silly. And I think, so just I don't know, something that when my brother died, it just totally filled that same drive that I had as a basketball player, where it's kind of that, you have that mentality of the classic, be the first one on the court, last one to leave. It's like the same thing with filmmaking, right? We do over romanticize the grind mindset to, I think, a negative space, but it did in a healthy space for me translate of where all that kind of hard work to be a good passer, you need to be practicing passing, and you need to be playing the game live, real, in the moment. And so film is that same way, because we could write all day, but then let's go see if we can put it in the camera, put it on the computer, and then go, it's real now. It's not an ethereal idea where I'm like, hey man, I have this idea. I'm going to prove it to you. It's going to be in your email, or it's going to be physically printed. You know, there's going to be sweat after we play this game. And so that sweat equity paid off in regards of just keep making stuff, keep trying weird things. Even that short film that you saw that scared you was just like, let's shoot it in a day. Like it's not the greatest concept, but like, let's just go have fun and like experiment and do something in a day, you know? And so every kind of little thing I did, no matter how well or how not so well it turned out, it kind of led to a relationship that I still have today, which is a really cool kind of thing of the power of finishing and the power of the connectivity of something finishing. Because if I don't finish it, the potential of it being seen is zero.
Yeah.
If I finish it, even if it's like I'm not that proud of it, or even if it's not about that, the chances of it being seen are much more higher than zero. So that 1% to 100% led to like a lot of relationships with actors or friends or filmmakers or, you know, DPs or gaffers and all that stuff. So that was something I was pretty disciplined at, that I think was a positive for me, is the power of finishing, which I still adhere to and hope to forever. Yeah, that's the long answer.
No, that's a great answer. I mean, you touched on it too. Like in the creative world, so many people have ideas, but very few people execute on getting it done, getting it made, or even try to get it made. There's a great book by John Acuff just called Finish, and it's about finishing stuff and fumbling through it if you need to get it done. And and it's really, he's a funny writer. It's a well-written book, but what you're describing too as a point guard makes a lot of sense. That's one thing that, you know, with me working with you, being on Popeye, there was that, you know, family atmosphere on set where everybody was working together. You're a great leader that way, where people want to make things happen, and especially your vision happen. That one thing that I remember, you know, being somebody that has worked on a lot of sets, and sometimes, you know, sets could be, an ego competition, and, you know, are we doing things the right way? Are we going by the book? All this stuff. But I remember, like, I think we were having lunch or something, and there was only one moment you can get a rain shot out in the back of that diner, or the front of that diner they were shooting at, and literally everybody got up from lunch, which you'd never see on a union set, and went and made the thing happen, and then came back, finished up or whatever. That doesn't happen just for anybody. That happens for a leader that people, you know, wanna work with, and as a team that people, you know, want to work with together and make something cool happen. And so that was a really cool little moment on set that, you know, nobody will ever see in the movie, but it happened, and it made the thing happen.
Man, I remember 2 specific moments about that, because we didn't even have like proper grip gear for that little rain rig that I had borrowed from a friend, which was like 4 spigots, you know, like an X.
Yes, 4 spigots.
And I had my buddy Bradford on the tallest ladder we had, and just holding it. You know, he's just Hollywooding this thing. And of course, we're shooting like a series, because it's a semi-emotional thing of you looking at Joe, and people are getting rained on, and Bradford's a super skinny, scrawny guy that was like, you know, $150. And I remember like looking up, and he's just for all his might, you know, just hanging off the side of a mountain. And I was like, could you, you know, like that kind of look of like, give me one more minute. And that was really beautiful to see. And then I remember walking up to Joe on his coverage, which I always wish I could have got closer, but I remember walking up to him, and it's post, spoilers, it's post suicide attempt, and he has a scar on his neck, and he's looking at you, of course, and there's just a little unsaid moment. And I remember there's just everybody, I had like 12 umbrellas for people to walk by and cross as extras. You know, everybody's just kind of doing circles and switching outfits and that whole game. And I remember just looking at Joe, and it was like, I don't know, second or third take. And I remember usually instinctually the direction comes, or of course you have something maybe written down before, but I remember looking at him, and I just went, you almost died. And it was not as a character talking to a director, or director talking to a character. It was just me to him. And I remember like finishing that sentence. It was that kind of, I didn't even punctuate it before both of us like got emotional as people. And I was like, I don't even think that moment is captured, but for me personally, in that private moment of like, I don't know, it was really beautiful, which is some of the craziest things about filmmaking is because, you know, if it's not in camera, it's not in the movie, right? If it's on camera, it's in the movie. But some of those little moments that happen in between action and cut, and that was a beautiful moment of looking back at your friend who's just giving it all he's got. I mean, he's just trembling because we don't have the proper gear, and God knows how long we had roll to take. You know, 6K.
Glad you guys are having a moment here.
Yeah. But that was like his moment to shine. So it was like he wanted to, but his body was breaking before his soul, his mind did. But I remember, just looking at Joe, that was a beautiful thing. I'm just going, man, we almost lost you. And that was just a really beautiful moment that I haven't forgotten.
You touched on something that, like, so, you know, our listeners are from all over the map. We have a lot of people that are writers and filmmakers, and so they understand, you know, what we're talking about. But and I know people, the general public, they understand that there's a lot that goes into filmmaking, but I don't think that not everybody gets the amount of stuff that goes into just getting a scene, a reaction, a feel, all that stuff that, like you said, is off camera. Nobody will ever see it if it's not on camera. But just to get things to a place that, you know, is authentic, or, you know, strikes a chord, or whatever it is you're trying to accomplish. There's a lot of great things that you did. And I've been on sets where, you know, some stuff is just, you read the lines and like, great. All right, moving on. And like, there isn't necessarily this build on stuff, but the best movies I find are when directors and actors and crew do, you know, they do the build up to make these scenes feel like you're dropping in on them, like they're happening in a real world. Well, some of the things you did too was like you had like great music on hand that would never make the movie unless you had a lot of money to put to put towards sound, to put towards the music budget, but like things that help the actors feel what they're needing to feel, that nobody will ever see or know or understand. There's so many little things like that on the emotion side and creating the environment. And then like you were talking about 4 spigots and a guy on a ladder. Like people think, oh, that's janky, but I've been on, you know, studio sets where sometimes it's just some guy on a ladder holding crap. And that's how they make, you know, a multi-million dollar shot. Like, I joke around, everything on set is basically held together with duct tape and C-stands. Like, that's just how movies are made. Do you feel like, so you're somebody that, like you mentioned earlier, that you had a background with like zero kind of film other than Berenstain Bears and maybe some old Chronicles of Narnia. Do you think that anybody like that you grew up with, and maybe they see you now, what you're doing, have any inkling to what goes into doing this? It's such a foreign thing, I think, to some people.
I don't know, man, because like even the music aspect, like I'm in Spotify's like top 1% of listeners almost every year. Like I listen to music all the time, love music, all types of music. But growing up, we didn't really play music. There was a spell in our childhood where my parents got that rumor of if your kids listen to classical music, it'll make them smarter. So sometimes during school hours, which was like, please God help Beethoven make Justin smart. I love Beethoven, but he did not help. But so now like music is such a big part of my life, which is another like ironic thing and something that I think when you have nothing and then you get to experience, you of course go overboard. But for me, like finding music that clicks with me, like that one particular song that if I hear it now, I'll still probably tear up. It's called Goodbye Friend, I think it is, by Deer Tick, which is a band I wasn't familiar with. And I saw it in a video about Sons of Anarchy, and I hadn't even seen that show at the time, but it was a dude who was man, I can't remember his last name, but he's like shaving his hair, his character's hair, if you will, after his character raps the show.
Oh,
and like the other actors are kind of ceremonially shaving this ponytail or something like that. And that track was used. And so I remember having that on my little playlist for Popeye. And I remember we shot a scene with you watching home videos, which was actually just home videos from my childhood. And it's just a static 35 kind of wide on you, and you're just watching stuff, and it's just a reflection of the TV on your eyes, and you just kind of well up. And I remember like welling up with you. And then the other scene where you're at the table kind of processing the day after seeing this guy possibly take his life. And I remember just hitting that song, and we just kind of roll through the song, and you were just so still.
Yeah.
Just so still in your processing. And I think we as humans, sometimes we process stuff on the move and out of necessity. We're driving, we're dealing with kids, or you're at work, or you're in between things at all times. It's like the only time people are still is when they're, they got to go to the bathroom or they're asleep. But just seeing you sit still, which I think is such a goalpost for me as a filmmaker. I just want to see people sit and talk. I just want to see that human thing of exchanging information and learning. So that was a really beautiful moment of me, of just actually watching you, not even through the lens. But yeah, that song was, that song directed the whole movie. So yeah, that was beautiful.
It was a really perfect way to, like you said, make space for that scene to happen. Because, when you're on a set, it's like, being on a construction crew or roofing or something. Everybody's got some job to do, and they're moving around and all this stuff. Yes. And then you finally get to roll, and it's like, we got to roll now. Like it created that space for that to happen.
Well, it's like that 80s video you showed me of the skiing. It's like as soon as that music cue dropped, I'm in it. So it's like if I say, all right, the dance scene, if you will. All right, now dance, action. It's just not the same thing. But if I'm like, when you hear the music, that's go time. It's just sometimes it's just much better than words or giving a hand signal. Like just the music will carry you. Whether it's an emotional thing or it's just going to make you, shake your tush for a minute on the dance floor, like Napoleon Dynamite. Just play that track, and they're going to slow dance and look at their sleeves. Like that's the music of the magic of music that we can't create, we can't touch. Just press play and back off. You know.
Have you ever been on a set where they've done like a dance with a lot of people on it before? Like say it was a high school dance or a party or something like that?
I am almost positive, but most of the things I've worked on aren't the most memorable. But yes, I'm almost positive I've worked on like a high school prom.
So my first acting job ever was being an extra on a made-for-TV movie in Canada where I grew up.
Yes.
Alicia Cuthbert was the lead in it. She was a teenager at the time. And the other actor was Michael Yarmish, which people probably don't know that name, but it's he was the voice of Arthur the Aardvark on the TV series. Anyway, it was a high school dance it was called Dancing on the Moon. And it was my first experience kind of being on set in a way. And they would start maybe like 10 seconds of the music and get everybody going, all the extras and stuff going in the background. And then they would cut it. And there's like a band on stage on a bandstand and everything. Yeah. And everybody is just moving around. Well, they got the beat and then moving around to a beat in their head, and nobody's doing the same thing or something. And they have to cut it out so they could record the dialogue clean for people that don't know how audio is recorded on film. It was the most awkward, most like unnatural thing that you can do. And I'm like, surely there's got to be a better way to do this.
Dude, extra work like that is no joke. Yeah. If you get a bunch of extras in like a restaurant scene, and you hear just a couple of forks and plates tinkering around, and then if you actually just like zero in on an extra and they're just like, like not even really it's a tough game. So I got mad props for a lot of extra work. I've done some extra work, but those things are, and some people, man, they're just like made for it, but it is tough. It is not easy, and the miming like they're talking to.
Yeah, you could always tell like, when they're talking over each other that they're not talking to each other.
That's the best.
It's like, wait, you've been in a conversation, right? You know that two people don't talk at once.
No, and it's the best too when a lot of the extras like possibly haven't done it before, and so like they're not in the shot, and the crew haven't let them know like, hey, you're actually not being seen, but they're still like in it, so you can just watch somebody, bless their heart, like still going after it. I'm like, I love that guy. That guy is fake eating a burger with nothing. He doesn't even have a prop burger. He's just. So I tip my hat. But yeah, a dance scene with no music, that's tough. You just hear a bunch of shifting nerves, You just hear
you hear little feet shuffles. That's if you
awesome.
can find that movie online in that dance scene, you can see my little curly head as a 12, 13-year-old bouncing around the background at one point.
That is awesome.
It's pretty ridiculous. Yeah. But it's always like I figured out early on doing it. So like a lot of people I think that extra work early on is like an avenue into acting, and if you've worked in the industry for a long time, you realize it's not really how it works. And I kind of figured that out early on. I was like, okay, this is just kind of a cool job for me to get to be on set and kind of see how things are being made. But I also figured out, I don't know if I should reveal this. Maybe I should. It's statute of limitations is probably probably resolved on this. But I figured out that if you weren't used a lot in the beginning, and if you weren't seen a lot, you'd get held back when they wrap extras, because they're like, oh, we haven't used you a lot, we're going to keep you back. And so if you're doing like a night shoot or whatever, and you're getting overtime, you could really make bank as a teenager with no other job. And by the end of doing a 16-hour shoot, I can make more than all my friends do in a month in the summer doing this. So like I figured out as a 13-year-old, all right, when the AD comes around and he's picking extras, I'm going to the bathroom, or I'm not making eye contact, or whatever I could to delay being cut, and it worked out pretty well.
That is funny. Also, you might get a close up if they need stragglers, because then they only have very little options, and they go, "You're all we got."
Then at the end you get seen a lot more too. That's the that's the other thing. But all this stuff was like Nickelodeon type shows that they made in Canada that most people haven't seen unless you grew up there. But the one thing was, Are You Afraid of the Dark? I've done a few episodes of that where I was an extra, and then another one called Goosebumps too. was the other one that I did. That's shot awesome. All that stuff in Montreal. But awesome. It was a weird gig. But that gets me the question, like, you've worked a lot of different positions on set. Is obviously, you're in your element as a director. Is there another job in the filmmaking world that if you had to do that job, you'd be happy doing that on set?
I mean, there was a moment where I could have pursued a stunt career for a minute, and I had an opportunity to work on a pretty big franchise, and I would have had to work my way up. But I had a stunt reel, and I loved to kind of do action stuff, and any fight choreography I still love, and do a lot for friends who make shorts, where they need, soldier number 5 to get blown up or beat up. They usually will call me because they know I'm game. But I wasn't like a proper stunt guy. I was just someone who was fairly athletic and had done a lot of fake fighting and real fighting as a kid. And so I kind of was, they knew I would be interested and willing to throw myself around. But I said no because I was making that short, Grape Soda. So that was my opportunity. That was like my big break. I think it was my big break, but I turned it down. Yep. But the only other thing I think that does scratch an itch is through living vicariously through other friends' films, where it's like, hey, how can I help you? Is it giving notes on a script? Is it, once upon a time I was, slating and changing lenses, or I was pulling focus, or I was helping the lighting crew, or, the Grip brothers, and again, PAing, ADing. I've done a little bit of everything, but occasionally being in front of the camera in some iteration, depending on what it is, that scratches an itch for me. because it's kind of that same stunt mentality of like, if you call so-and-so on some random casting website, like they can come and hit these 4 lines, but it like, is it worth the plane ticket? Is it worth the hotel? Is it worth the rate? Is it worth the gas? Is it worth, or do you just call one of your friends who's like, yeah, dude, I got you. And we'll go full throttle. So occasionally I've acted in very small like scenes for friends. And sometimes that scratches an itch just because it's part of storytelling. And they know, most directors know what the actors have to go through in some iterations. So then also I'm kind of a glutton for pain too. So I kind of want to experience that because it keeps you fresh. And in college, I took acting classes and stuff just to kind of check the other side, although it was the theater version. But there was a lot of great exercises that helped kind of get you out of your mind a little bit, like weird animal things where you can't be cool when you're doing it. You can't be normal when you're doing it. If you're going to be a gorilla, you're a child. And I'm very willing to be a child. So occasionally there's like a little small itch of like, yeah, that would be something I would be willing to do. You know, like there's certain roles I see, like Jake Gyllenhaal in Prisoners, where I'm like, God, if I was an actor, I would pursue those kind of roles. That seems super fun, like a troubled detective, you know, with a propensity for violence. And, you know, of course, military stuff is always interesting to me. Would love to act in like a medieval thing, you know, just give me a sword. And like even like Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers, if you remember the siege where they have that one orc who runs with the torch, who blows himself up on a suicide mission, you know, where he like tries to blow up that little wall. I'm like, I want that role. I want the 20 seconds of running and diving, like the stunt role. That's the kind of stuff where I'm like, I don't want to be the lead. I have no interest to be a movie star, but you're like, you need those guys. You need those
for sure.
Those random little scenes to stitch it together, and you need someone crazy. And I think I fit the bill for a lot of those things in a lot of ways. So that would be the only thing. But I think I have too much respect for actors to ever say I would want to be an actor. But occasionally, out of necessity, I've done it for friends, and sometimes that can fill a void.
Yeah, well, you're really great on camera too. I mean, I've seen you in a bunch of your stuff and in other things too. Like, I don't think you're disrespecting actors at all. You definitely have that instinct. All right, let's take a quick break and we'll be back to close out the show.
When you wanna look dapper, smell like a man on the rise. Phoenix Shaving Selection is the ultimate prize. Artisan fragrances for every taste so refined. With shaving soaps and razors you're sure to find. Manly aftershaves, making waves, oh what a sensation. At Phoenix Shaving, it's a gentleman destination. Beard balms, mustache wax, every toiletry you desire. You'll smell so good, you'll set hearts on fire. Go to shave.gentlemanscofflaw.com to help support the show.
All right. So Justin, we talked a lot about filmmaking, but you're obviously, our listeners can hear that you're a great storyteller. Some of the craziest stories I've ever heard in my life has come off of your lips. I don't expect you to tell them all here, but you know, it's so fun. I do think it's really funny that somebody that, you know, maybe grew up with less access to stories can be such a good storyteller. Maybe that's the secret sauce to being a good filmmaker is grow up in a prison where you don't have access to real stories or music.
Yeah, man. I mean, I grew up around like Sunday afternoon potlucks. So you got a bunch of old white people in the South, you know, crushing fried chicken and deviled eggs and some mystery casserole that you probably shouldn't have dabbled in. And so it's like this kind of, backdrop for a movie where if you saw my childhood like at a film festival, you'd be like waiting for the A24 logo to come up. Like, shit's gonna get really weird soon. You know, like whatever the inciting incident and whatever the climax is gonna raise some questions. And that's kind of been my path, is like, if I put this in the movie as is, just as a journalist, it's unbelievable.
Yeah.
It's just too weird. It's too awkward. It's too off the beaten path. But yeah, so I don't know. I just grew up in this environment where, as the fourth and final kid in my family, didn't really have a voice at the table. And so there was some psychological learning of like, I want to make people feel heard. And just naturally, instinctively, and sometimes unfortunately, people on the street, people wherever I am, feel the freedom innately to come and just tell me their life story. So it's at a restaurant, at a coffee shop, you name it. Just people are friendly, and I'll talk to anybody. And by talking, I mean, it usually just means listening. And with most people who kind of come and share whatever is on their heart, to them it might feel like 5 minutes, but sometimes in actuality it might be like 3 hours. And so some people that know this about me have experienced it firsthand, or anytime they've heard one of these party stories, they're like, "What? Why do you think they come up to you? Why do you think that you get, singled out? If it's a homeless guy on the street, like there's 20 people around, he'll come to me. If there's, somebody outside of a gas station shouting at the sky, like they'll come talk to me. If I'm at a restaurant, somebody will just walk up to my table and say, "Can I sit with you?" Straight out of a movie, and I'll see it coming. And usually the candidates that sit across from me are usually on the side of the spectrum of like, I'm not sure I'm safe. I'm not sure I'm going to be solicited. I'm not sure what's going on upstairs. But I'm here and I'm present. And so through the years, a lot of these interactions have gone all sorts of ways. But I try to, at a certain point, just because the conversations can be so lengthy, to record them in some way. So I got pretty good at like nonchalantly hitting my voice memo app just so I could have a recording just for safety, but also because the things they say might be so interesting to use in a script that I won't be able to remember it all. Mm-hmm. So through the years, people have been asking me, why do you think this happens? And I don't know. Some people say I have crack cocaine energy. Some people say I have one of those faces. Some people say I'm asking for it because in lieu of these conversations, sometimes these interactions are through like confrontations. Like somebody is out and about acting a fool or causing harm or about to. And I have a bent about me where I kind of go into autopilot and I won't even think before I'm next to the situation. Like the point A to point B is completely not in my mind. I see it and then all of a sudden my steps have carried me there. So it's like a hard jump cut. And so a lot of them have been, really wild scenarios where I was at a gas station one time in Mississippi and this guy, I had a feeling in the back of my head that someone was coming behind me. And it was a pretty rough gas station in the middle of nowhere. I was driving from Texas to the East Coast and needed like a Red Bull and some expired candy, and I was in the candy aisle and I just all of a sudden hear, "Give me all your money." Like very loud, dramatic, straight out of a movie, like bank robbery scene. And the hairs of my neck go up and I just slowly turn, just 180. And there's a dude in my aisle, 5 feet, 7 feet from me, locked in on me, not blinking, sweaty, huge hoodie. And it was summer, it was hot. And it's in Mississippi, so it's hot.
Yeah.
And he had both hands in his pockets. And everybody in the gas station, there's like 4 other people, everybody froze. And so we just look at each other. And it was like that high noon Western, the little dry bush, rolling by. And I was like, kind of in the back of my head, like I've waited for this my whole life, for someone to try to mug me. I don't know which way this is going to go, but he has his hands in his pockets. So there's a real threat there. And so I just look at him for like probably 5-7 seconds. And he doesn't say anything. And I don't think I blinked either, because the problem is with most people in these scenarios, people go, "Oh my God, Justin, they could be crazy." And they're right. But I'm like,
Yeah.
you got to understand, it's a two-way street.
Yeah.
You're presuming I'm not crazy.
Yeah.
So like, we just stare at each other, and eventually he just balks. He just finally blinks and is like, "Nah, I'm just kidding, man." And like, just kind of backpedals and got kind of weirded out, and then just sprinted out and rode a beach cruiser bike away. And somebody called the police. And then I picked Chewy Sprees and got in my car and left. Like weird scenarios where it's just kind of like, if I'm the character in the story, it doesn't make sense why it happened. It doesn't really propel the story forward. But one of the weirder ones was a couple years ago. I was at a mechanic shop getting something fixed on a car, and I just chose to sit it out and work at this car place instead of like going home and coming back. So I was just chilling on my laptop, and I don't know if I have one of those faces. And a lot of people are like, well, don't even look at them. Like, just be an introvert and like make sure they know, like, stay away. But I definitely was feeling that. Like, I wasn't interested that day. I was a little wiped out because some people can just go. And this old guy walks in. He's just chatterbox, like the old guy that says the same joke for 40 years. You know, the old guy who says inappropriate things to like teenage girls. You know, he's 80 and he's like, if I was 40 years younger, just kind of that guy. And he's just talking up
Only
everybody.
40 years younger.
Yeah. What, you know that comment they always make when they're like, well, if
Yeah.
I was, he kind of had that vibe. And I knew he was going to come to me. There's only one other guy in the waiting area and the lady who owned the place. And I knew my time was coming. So he sits next to me and I hit my voice recorder, and he's just got this old man, you know, stream of consciousness. He doesn't really, you're not really involved in the conversation. But again, I was kind of like weathering the storm, like, man, I'm just not really feeling it today. Cause for a while, like it was any time I go out, and especially if I'm by myself. So it could be, you know, a sex worker coming up and trying to give you coupons for a free half off deal, or it could be someone trying to mug you and then I guess not mugging you. So it's like anywhere under the pendulum. So I didn't really know where it was going to go, but he was an older guy. So it's just kind of like, it was all over the place. We got to a point where he was saying he grew up in Phoenix and this, that, and the other. And then all of a sudden he's just like, yeah. And I was, when I was 19, I was facing 10 life sentences.
Jeez.
And again, I've contributed nothing to lead him to this conclusion in the story.
Yeah.
But he has my
Like that
attention now.
scene in
So-
Sling Blade.
Yeah, I'm like, I'm sorry. 10 life sentences. That is a lot.
Yes.
So I'm thinking, okay, what would require a life sentence, let alone 10, has to be pretty significant. So I'm churning about, you know, like, is this rape? Is this murder? Is this attempted murder? Is this like, you know, grand theft? Like, what is the cases? But again, I'm just listening, and he's feeling listened to. And the only thing he asked me was my name. So he would kind of punctuate every sentence with like, well, you know, Justin, I was doing this, and then I was 19, I was facing 10 life sentences. And you know, I went before the judge, and he said, are you a student? Do you go to college? And I said, yes, sir. And he goes, are you a good student? And I said, yes, sir. And the judge goes, well, I'm just going to postpone this arraignment, and I'm going to go talk to your professors and see if you're really telling the truth, and we'll come back next week. And he comes back next week and says, you know, I talked to your professors, and they say you're a good student, and I would just hate to, you know, ruin your life like this. So I think I'll just do 6 months probation. If you go to all your meetings, we'll clear your record, and it'll be expunged, and that'll all you'll have to do. And he's like, man, Justin, it was a blessing from God, and kind of had that like something really bad in his life had to happen for him to go to God, and kind of use that card of like, you know, it's like a guy learning rape is bad, and he's like, oh, I'm a Christian now. You're like, oh, okay. Okay, you came to Christ after. Okay. So it was kind of this weird defense that he was using, and then I kind of go, so if you don't mind me asking, like, what were your charges? And he's like, armed robbery. And I'm like, okay. And he goes, and I was guilty of all of them. But he goes, those are the only ones they knew about. I was guilty of a whole lot more. And then again, unencumbered by anything. And that's like the only question I asked was, what was your charges? And he goes, I was guilty of a lot more. And what he told me he used to do is he, as apparently a straight man, would go to gay bars and wait for, in his words, like an effeminate dude to come out alone. Wow. And he would pull a gun on them, walk them to their car, make them drive out to the desert with him in the passenger seat, and then he would rob them, beat them up, and then he would have like a follow car of his cronies or whatever you want to call it, and they would just rob gay dudes. And so I'm like, and again, he was saying this with the law did not know anything about these.
Wow.
So he briefly gets into that, and then he dropped this line. And again, unencumbered. I've only asked what your charges were after him telling me kind of this whole spiel. And he goes, well, and between you and me, I once shot a guy behind a pool hall, and to this day, I don't know if he died, but he probably did. And then he just moves on like about the weather.
Holy crap.
And he was 80 at the time, so it was 19. So he's speaking like it was yesterday. So he has a pretty sharp memory. And so I'm doing the math in my head of like, there's a little bit of whiplash with that comment where you're like, did he just tell me he murdered or had attempted murder? And again, no one knew that. Yeah. And he didn't say like somebody tried to mug him, somebody drew a gun on him, and it was self-defense. He just said, between you and me, I once shot a guy behind a pool hall in an alleyway. To this day, I don't know if he died, but he probably did. So then, not long after that, the lady who was working the place had my car ready, and I finally had an out. And I left, and I was like, man, I'm almost sure this guy said this. So I go back to my voice recording, and it's like clear as day. I was wearing a wire. I was a rat for the mob. I turned into an informant, and I'm like, oh my God. So like a year and a half later, I call the Phoenix Police Department, and they put me in touch with a cold case detective. And I have his name. I've done background checks. I know his address. I know how many windows are at his trailer. I know a lot about this guy. Of
course it's in a trailer.
Yeah, it was like I went into kind of a full detective mode because I had a few close calls with stories of people who were stalking and a guy who followed me that turned out to be a pretty deviant gentleman. To where it was like it was a couple scary situations where I needed to know where these people lived. I needed to know who they were. And so this guy fell into that category. So they take my report, and because it was so long ago in 1959, I believe he said, they didn't have much records. You know, police departments are pretty notorious for not keeping good records at that time. And then, of course, like old records and cold cases, they lose them in a fire. When they change buildings, they leave them. So there was but she did acknowledge, this cold case detective, that they knew who he was. And so over the course of a few months, I kept doing some digging, and I went through like every news article of that time of looking for newspaper articles of someone getting killed in an alleyway, and looking up every address of a former bar, and like so many things that he told me checked out. And I found out so much about him. And there was one black gentleman who was killed in a pool hall. So the only discrepancy was it wasn't outside. And again, this guy who was telling me the story, he didn't say what ethnicity the guy who shot him was, so I didn't know that. But I couldn't quite figure out everything, but I had a lot of circumstantial evidence that this case, which went unsolved, was real. And because I believed him, I knew he was telling the truth, but he never... I probably could have asked more in retrospect, since he was so giving, to be like, what was his name? What was the name of the pool hall? In a creative way. Because again, this was just free. I was like, it didn't seem like I was the first person he told, but it could have been at the same time, because he was just so flippant with like, hey, I once shot a guy, but like, God's great, right?
Yeah, so it doesn't sound super remorseful.
Yeah, you left the guy to bleed out though, right? Yeah. That's what you're telling me. Whether that guy robbed you or not, which again, I feel like you would allude to. If you're like, dude, this guy tried to mug me, and I pumped him. Yeah. I pumped him with 2 in the stomach and got out of Dodge. So I did a lot of research, and I couldn't quite figure it out. And I handed over the audio recording. The police have everything. But of course, it was like, you could tell it was probably going to be on the back burner. There wasn't really much to go. It's been a long time ago, which I kind of foresaw. But I was like, well, the least I could do is maybe ruin this guy's like week. maybe I could because it bothered me. It bothered me greatly. So I did as much detective work as a unexperienced internet sleuth like me, who's not a hacker, doesn't have those skills. But I went on a pretty deep dive. So I got a burner phone app, and then I started calling this guy, and he would answer, because he had this like little engine repair business, which he had like anti-reviews for, because he was a a scheming con man. So he would steal all the stuff, so all of his business that he was still. So he had to answer the phone because he had this business, even in his 80s. So I started calling him under the guise of this guy named Bill. And then so I finally just kind of almost like sent by God. He doesn't know who I am. I'm like, hey man, how you doing? And then I just kind of abruptly started talking about the details of that day. Yeah. And he just got real cold. And he's like, wait, who are you? How do you know this? And then I tell him, you told me. And he goes into full, like, I mean, straight up a true crime show, like denying it with rage and anger. There was no like indifference, or it was self-defense. It was full on. Like, this guy's been living with this and he's going to die with it. I don't think anything's going to come of it. But I was, for days texting, calling, prank calling, keeping him up late at night. And then the last thing I did was sign up
Petty
his
stuff.
the best I could do. I was like, the best I could do at this point is like, without doing anything illegal or unwise, is just to sign up his email address and his home address for like every type of junk mail and religious fanatic junk mail. So like anything you could sign up to get sent information from was sent to his house. So from like the prosperity gospel genre to junk mail to insurance things. So I can't imagine how much mail he got. I don't get the victory of getting to see his emails rack up or his phone numbers rack up, but I spent like a couple of weeks just signing him up for goodies. So I haven't spoken to him in a while, but that's an open case, if you will. But it was one that I was like, the finality of that I really need to scratch, which is, why those kind of unsolved cases in movies are so hard for an audience to wrap their head around, because you want to solve it, you want to know what's going on. And once I revisit it, there's one specific detail of a guy that had lost his life, and the circumstances are eerily similar to where I almost got in touch with the family of the guy who was killed to go, do you guys know how he passed? And do you know if there was any, because there was a lot of judicial things, because this guy who told me the story, his uncle was a judge. And so there was a lot of corruption in that area, which is partially probably the reason why he got off. So, but he's, that one kept me up at night for a long time. But a real piece of work, but straight out of a movie, dude. I have all the recordings, all the phone calls, and it will chill your spine, dude. Listening to him deny and speak on it is like, oh wow. Because sometimes you're like, have I ever crossed paths with a murderer? Yeah. And sitting next to him, I'm like, oh yeah, man. Absolutely. I spoke to him on the phone. I was like, oh, I'm actually talking to a murderer. And that's the only thing I know about it. There's probably more. If he so flippantly told me that, if that's 60 years ago, what's he done in 60 years? And he has 2 adult sons who have also quite a lengthy criminal record. So, I mean, I knew almost everything you could know legally about this guy, which surprised him. So, I went off the rails a little bit, which is probably good. Well, I'm not a detective because I don't know how long I could do legal stuff. I think I wouldn't last very long before it's like, I don't know how cops do it. I'm like listening to stuff over the table. I'd have a hard time staying in my seat. And that was a test to where it was like, okay, how do I coerce this? How do I offer this? Is there any way that he could speak light to this? And it was not an easy game. But he did shit his pants a couple of times, which I was like, at best,
well, he's 80.
Ruin his week.
Maybe his depends.
I mean, there was no like dementia. There was no Alzheimer's in his thoughts. He was clearly pursuing the opposite of taking responsibility. And that was really interesting. So there was no like, he doesn't understand he was sharp as a whip, dude. He knew exactly what he did. He knew exactly what he should feel, and he knew exactly how to evade it. And that bothered me greatly. Yeah, that's insane, man. It was pretty wild. It's still a cold case for me. I haven't cracked it, but I don't wish ill on many people, but man, I wish great ill on him. I'm like, every red light you ever drive through, I hope you stop. I hope you get stopped. Yeah.
Yeah, you just need. You know what the next level in this is going to his town and changing all the red light signals so that he does.
Well, the good thing
just
is
changing the timing of it, so he's in a routine and he goes through a red light.
The good thing is that I don't live where he lives anymore, because another part that I left out is he was so like frank and upfront and like offered. He wanted me to come have dinner with him and his wife. That's how quickly he felt safe. Was like, you seem like a great guy. I would love to have you come over for dinner. So like, he was like trying to give me his number right away. And like, this guy's like, it's just a random circumstance. You go, how would you find yourself here? I go, you couldn't make it up. I'm not that good of a writer. It just has to happen. And then you scratch your head and you jot down the notes. But thankfully I was states away. So there was no real temptation of like, God, I just want to go to his place of business and just see it, you know. But there's a lot of safety issues there. But so it was good that I didn't live there anymore, because after I moved is when I made the call to the cold case. And but yeah, that's one of the weirder ones where like people have confessed all sorts of things, deviant things, crazy things, silly things. You know, you're kind of like a street psychiatrist in a way, where you're just like listening without taking notes, and you're just like, okay, yeah, okay, interesting. Like, one guy told me he turned down sex from a demon after a 3-day bender, and it's like it's like him telling me, you know, his favorite color is blue, like it's totally normal. So it's just
well, at least he turned it down.
Yeah, at least he turned it down. But it's like no one's ever quite confessed murder or attempted murder, especially in the way that he so nonchalantly did. You know, between you and me, which is a heck of an opening line. Between you and me, I once shot a guy behind a pool hall in an alleyway. To this day, I don't know if he died, but he probably did. I was like, big gulps,
That's
huh?
it. Yeah.
Well, see you later.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's one of the weirder ones.
You should have been like, you ever seen Sling Blade? Do you know the movie Sling Blade?
Actually, no. I know.
Dude,
yeah, I know all the stories.
it's right up your
to
alley.
put the digital eyes all of.
Well,
Like
Sling Blade, it's funny because the opening of that movie is he's in like I don't know if it's like an insane asylum or something, and this one guy is just running off his mouth about everything he's done to everybody over the years, and he's just sitting there listening. That's what it makes me think of. Yeah. Yeah, you got. I think that that's a movie you'd like. You should check it out sometime.
Yeah,
it's so good. It's one of my favorites, but it's dark. Plus, you get to see Dwight Yoakam as an actor in it. So,
I'm not afraid of dark. I know a lot of the horror stories, and then a friend of mine, he's in the big like Marvel world, so he's in the know about that stuff. So I know they were supposed to make a second one with Mahershala Ali for a long time, and then that plug got pulled.
Really?
And that was like supposed to be made years ago, but I don't think they're doing it anymore. Or a remake, maybe not two. I think it was a whole reboot, I guess.
Oh yeah.
Since it would be a whole new actor. But no, that's very reminiscent of like the stuff I have on recordings. Like, man, it's just senseless. Like, what is happening inside of the brain of this person? You know, and I have to ask myself that. But it is wild. Where you're just like, man, I'm just trying to mail something at the post office, and 30 minutes later, somebody's trying to baptize me in the Holy Spirit, and you're like, the movie I'm living in is like, who is writing this? This is like, we're just jumping all over the place, you know. So you just kind of have to be like, you have to kind of, I don't know. It's a strange thing where, again, it doesn't propel the story forward. It's just like, this is burning on their tongues right now. They have to get this off their chest. And I just happen to be the perfect candidate at the right time, at the wrong place, at the, you know, right time, right place, or wrong place, wrong time, depending on how you look at it, where it's just like humans just, it's a wild experience. But yeah, I've heard some wild stuff, man. Like, so I can't imagine like what a priest hears at confession, or what cops hear, you know, in the interrogation room. But like, I feel a kindred spirit to like, when those people leave the room, you just kind of like shake your head a little bit, and you're just like, whoa, that's a lot.
You know, yeah, that's a ton. I mean, do you have any plans to do anything with I mean, you have recordings and you have all these things. I feel like an anthology is in order or something of all these weird stories.
Years ago, I was thinking about doing a book about it, just kind of a collection of all these vignettes, because some are shorter, some are longer, some are, this, that, and the other. But over the years, through environments like today with podcasting, and I've always loved like radio dramas and kind of radio shows and kind of a narrative audio medium kind of vehicle. So I think I've been developing, trying to at least a series about all these stories, and just, all the kind of topical stories going into one episode, and then some of the stories just being a singular episode where, like, the guy who stalked me and followed me by car, it was the first time I've ever been followed straight out of a movie, like looking in the rearview mirror at his headlights and double checking by taking a fake turn to see if they turn down there, and then double backing and see if they turn again, and going, oh wow, it's actually happening. So and again, confronting these people with audio and video recordings to go like, I don't know what's happening, and I'm not sure I want to know, but I have a really strong gut feeling that it's not good. So over the years, I have been trying to develop it into a podcast where I do kind of through a narrative lens and through a weird format of more of a radio drama, sharing some of these stories in a proper format, because they're hard to tell. Some of them are like, that's an hour-long story. That's a 5-minute story. And to kind of tell it properly, it's not squeezing it in at a party to be like, oh, the guy told me he shot somebody 60 years ago. You're like, wait, what? Like, you kind of need the details. So I think I'm going to tackle those one day, of where it could just be something people, listen at their leisure on the way to work, or, while they're working on something, where they would just have to stop and go, I'm sorry, what? And you're like, I'm just reporting the news, man. The news is crazy. So yes, long story long, I hope to package those stories in a podcast format.
Yeah, man, I'd love to listen to it. I mean, that's like, my wife and I sometimes will listen to true crime stuff when we've got a long road trip. It was like, well, we can't really watch a show or a movie or something. Like, what's the equivalent? And we'll listen to something like that, because you could, at least get the feel of a story unraveling as you're listening to all these hours in the car. But that'd be so fun. Which that makes me kind of segue. What are you working on now? You've got some projects in the works. I know you're working over on your script show over at Film Riot. Is that something that's coming out soon?
Yeah, so hopefully late May of this year, 2026, we'll kind of reboot and kickstart a series called Page One and Beyond, where I look at professional scripts, movies that have been made, like The Prestige, Monsters Inc., you name it, to where I'll read the first page, or kind of first pages, opening scenes, if you will, and kind of just observe and report my findings, and just kind of see how they set up the world, see how they introduce a character, see what the feeling is, see kind of all the foundational structure that they do to set the stage, when a lot of it kind of goes unnoticed, whether it's a cold open, or Inglourious Bastards, where the opening scene is like the first 15 or 16 pages. And then to see how it ties in, or see what it sets up that it later is going to pay off, or see how things are introduced. And just really, it's almost like we're all going to like a screenwriting museum and just looking at like a script on the wall and going like, look at that. Almost if you were looking at a painting, like, look at how they did the sunset in that one.
Yeah.
Like, it's not really like rules based, or, hey, don't do this. It's just looking at masterful things done by masters and going like, dude, look at all what they did with this. So,
that's awesome.
So it's been actually really cool, because I already read a lot of professional scripts just out of leisure, and I usually prefer like book form. So whether it's It's a Wonderful Life, or Seven, David Fincher's Seven, written by Andrew Stanton, it's like taking a look at those opening scenes, just going like, look at what they do, and Fargo, you name it. So it's really exhilarating to kind of see how even like a Jeff Nichols movie, Take Shelter, like, look at what the title introduces. It's like a command, a promise. A storm's coming. Take shelter. It's not a question. It's a demand to go. You should find somewhere safe, and the movie lives up to that. So thinking of a movie like Jaws, like, what does the title do? Like, what does that incite? It also makes a promise that somebody's gonna get, bitten, eaten. A shark is gonna make a cameo. So kind of just looking at scripts.
Spoiler alert.
Really. Like, and also looking at movies that take on a different format, like Christopher Nolan's Oppenheimer is written in first person. So like that's a very unorthodox thing in the screenplay world. So all that to say, it's something that I think is very like it's not critical or review based.
Yeah.
It's not done from a critique mindset. It's more just like, isn't that awesome?
Yeah.
It's just stuff I personally connect to and look at it and go like, have you ever like read the script for Toy Story? Like, man, it is tight. Or have you ever read a Coen Brothers script? Like, it's so surgical and clinical and clean. Like they don't waste a word, you know? So it's called Page One and Beyond. And I think it's something that's very cool. And I think former me would have loved it and present me would love it too, in the sense of it's free. Like whether you go to film school or whether you know, are writing features every day, I think reading is some of the best ways you can learn how to write. And so looking at what the greats have done and what continually do, it's free. You can find PDFs of all the Oscar movies like every year that comes out. So it's just looking at what's available and just talking about it. So it's a very simple thing that could go by the wayside if we don't take advantage of it. So I think I want to take advantage of just going like, dude, these are available. I mean, I prefer them in book form, but you can get the PDF of like your favorite movie and just go, oh, that's how they wrote that fight scene. It wasn't just so-and-so punches, so-and-so punches. It's like, it's written in a way that is fun for the reader and not just a blueprint for a movie.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, what you're doing with that is so important, especially I think in this day where like, you know, film and television and stuff has gotten, you know, in a ways sometimes much more better, better and more creative in some ways, but it also much more consumable. And so I think even for people that don't, you know, work in crafting film or story, just being able to appreciate what goes into that stuff and understand like, oh, well, it's just, you know, this is not just kind of a throwaway thing that you binge and, you know, move on to the next thing. Like somebody has put some craft into this, and there's a lot of work that goes in that you don't notice.
And even movies that I think people wouldn't really at first glance be like, oh, that's how you structure an opening scene. So it's like you could go to Jim Carrey's like Liar Liar and just read the first page, and it's like a bunch of kids at school and they're talking about what their parents do, and it gets to Jim Carrey's son and he's like what did your dad do? And he's like he's a liar. And everyone kind of pauses and the teacher's like, and they realize he meant to he's a lawyer, but he is a liar. So the lady's like, oh, I think you mean a lawyer. So what it does is paint such a clear, you know, dichotomy and picture of one, it names the title, but it also goes, you know, it hits that kids say the darndest things and what he said is actually the truth. And so it's like they did that in, you know, 4/8 of a page. And it's like, that's what the movie is. And so if you're wanting to hook the studio executives in the first page, it's like there's things for that, but there's something for everybody because it depends if you like the movie Liar Liar or you don't. There's something to glean and go, oh my God, wow. So if you were going to write an action scene, there's that. There's, if you want to look at It's a Wonderful Life and listening to Angels talking about Jimmy Stewart's, it's like wild just to see it in action, to see it on white page with black ink and go, that's what they ended up with, started with just this.
Yeah.
It's just a really beautiful thing to kind of look at. Like, we see the treasures, we don't see the roadmap, you know, and it's just looking at the roadmap and like, look at what they read this and agreed this is worth this much money and this much time and this much effort. And your pages are going to look exactly the same, black ink on white paper, you know?
Yeah, that's inspiring. It's funny too, I think for me looking at scripts, it always kind of depends sometimes on the director, but seeing how the director interprets it, or seeing a movie and not having read the script and then going to the script, where like one of my favorite films is Diner. And that's a movie that feels like everything in it is improvised. And then when you look at the script, it's a little bit different, but it's pretty much all there. And I'm like, how did he get it to make it seem like this stuff was so realistic, to where I'm like, oh, these guys are just goofing around or whatever in this scene. And we're like, oh, well, that's actually in the script. It's there. It's crazy too to see sometimes how similar the two are, depending on the director or the filmmaker.
Yes. No, I love that. That's why sometimes you read a script, you're like, I don't remember this in the movie. Or you realize, oh, they cut this. And then you realize, oh, I can see why they cut this, you know? Or you go, oh, I still love it. It was in the script. And for me, too, just as a side note, like reading a script is actually really fun.
Yeah.
For me, it's like it's not a work thing. So we read a really good script, like Martin McDonagh, you know, like you go read In Bruges or The Banshees of Inisherin, and you're just, holy cow, there's nobody's doing what he's doing. I mean, that's a weird cat in the best of ways. Like there's something beautifully wrong with that guy, and I'm so grateful for whatever.
That's one of my favorite movies of the last decade was Banshees of Inisherin.
His scripts, even his plays, they're unbelievable, dude. Like it's, I mean, I read Rope, Alfred Hitchcock movie, the play. I mean, just stuff like this. Man, it's masterful, dude, and so encouraging and so inspiring. And so, yeah, I'm a big fan of scripts.
Well, if we're going, we'll close out the show here, but if you were going to pick your most favorite opening scene in a movie, what was it? What is it?
Oh, wow. You need the Jeopardy music behind this thought process. Give me a second.
I know I put you on the spot.
Oh, man. I mean, Inglourious Bastards is up there.
Yeah.
That's pretty masterful. The tension, the coverage, the dick measuring moment with Hans Landa when he pulls out his pipe, which is, like 5 times as big, and it's like this Chrysler version to his little lemon, that he hand carved. So it's like the things that they do physically with props, not just the writing necessarily.
Yeah.
It is in the writing, but I mean that's a heavy way to start a movie.
Yeah, for sure.
God, I don't know.
That's a good one. That's
a tough one. Toy Story 3, I don't know.
You never know. The first 3 Toy Stories are solid.
Dude, those scripts are unbelievable. That 5th one comes out in a couple months.
Really? I wonder if it'll be any good.
5 on the way. Man, I'm trying to think. What would be my favorite scene? That's a good question. I might have to get back to you post podcast.
Yeah. We can put it in the show notes. What do you think of it?
That's a great question. 'Cause that's a tough balance, man. Introducing a movie is like, that is a hill to climb, because you could do it so many different ways and they would all be great, but one is probably right.
Yeah.
And how you make that and come to that conclusion is a mystery.
Yeah. Yeah, it's hard for me to pick some
God,
too.
I don't know.
But
I'm looking at my screenplays right now. I'm like, I don't know. What would you say?
I remember, gosh, I really think that I really liked the opening to the movie Rushmore, because it just sets up the character so well to where you think this person is like this savant, and you find out afterwards that he's really just a poor student, directionless student. And one of my favorite lines is technically near the opening. It's not exactly the opening, but like it's after a school assembly, and Bill Murray is talking to the dean of the school, and he's like, "Who is that Max? Seems like a sharp little guy." And he's like, "He's one of the worst students we've got." It's just such a good setup for this not really a con man, but just kind of this super confident little kid not knowing what he was doing.
No, that's a good one. So, I remember you and I connected over the Royal Tenenbaums scene with Gene Hackman. Like, this is my. What does he say when he's like? Oh yeah, it has that whole scene where they cut to that one moment of him introducing like the daughter. And he says something. I remember we connected over that. You were like, the fact that he like went all to this, you do all this production for this one shot to say this one obscure, spiteful, hurtful thing. Yeah, I can't remember what the line is, but I remember I was like, oh, I love that stuff.
Oh yeah, it was like something like I forget. They mentioned something about his adopted daughter. Gosh, it's been a while since I watched Royal Tenenbaums, and it goes to this big like ball, like I don't know, it was a birthday, it was a ball. It's like this huge scene, and he's like, "This is, this is my adopted daughter, Marco," or something.
Yeah.
And it's just like, it's literally
Yes.
2 seconds of this entire, it would have taken, days to build that thing.
Yeah.
It just skates over it. And there's a lot of that stuff in his movies.
I
where
actually
he
have
just-
read it. I have read the Royal Tenenbaums. I should know
Yeah.
that line.
Yeah.
No, that's a good one.
Yeah. Well, man, this has been great. Thank you so much for talking with us. If people want to find you, where can they go?
Onlyfans.com, baby.
Hey, yeah, I'll put that in the show notes. See if it gets taken down from
Yeah.
YouTube. But
No. I'm on all the socials, or most of them at least. So I'm pretty easy to find.
I'll put your links down in there for you.
J-Rob Productions, you can find me.
J-Rob Productions.
Or you'll see me out in public and come tell me your life story.
Yeah. Or don't do that. Or maybe do that. Maybe you need some more material.
I'm open to it. I'm open to it. Yeah, COVID really took a dent because it was all that isolation where it was like at the peak of a lot of those stories. So then you're not seeing as many people. But yeah, if I go out, there's a really likely chance I'll have some sort of interaction that if people are with me, they'll be nervous. It's just with like kind of unsavory characters that you wouldn't exactly invite into your home. But yeah, it's very interesting. So I'm usually open. I'm open to it, and it's usually of value, but it can be a little bit dangerous.
Yeah. You're like that guy in the Mindhunter.
Oh man! In another life, I think being an investigator would have. But again, I don't think I would have had the restraint.
Yeah, that's the big thing. You would have been the hothead cop.
Oh man, just
knocking the coffee off of the interrogation table and put your hands down, yelling.
There would have
in
been
their
a
face.
lot of suspensions on my record. I had a lot of desk duty from occasion.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I have a lot of respect for investigators because I've written a detective serial killer movie, and that writing process of figuring out a crime, and it is really difficult and interesting to me because I do watch a lot of true crime and I'm fascinated by humanity and have a lot of friends who have lost loved ones in various violent ways. And so in another life, I think being an investigator would have fit my personality, but I definitely would have had a difficult time. Yeah, that's a tough job, man.
Yeah, I don't want it. I think I would like doing like research. Like I'd like to be the researcher for an investigator. Maybe like, hey, check this out. This seems kind of weird. Like that's where,
That's perfect. Hey, you need that guy.
Yeah,
You need that guy.
That's where I think I would shine for sure.
No, dude.
All
I've been trying to write a movie. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, no, you're good. I was going to say, Justin, you are a gentleman and a scofflaw, my friend.
High praise. Thank you.
All right, you guys have a great week.
This has been the Gentleman's Scofflaw Podcast. Subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcatcher. Support the show at patreon.com/gentscofflaw.
Captain says his ice on the river. We ain't getting home if we don't break through. So damn cold, I can't help but shiver. Rise and shine, we got work to do. Hey!